So I promised a breakdown of the Palworld lawsuit and the defenses that Pocketpair is using against Nintendo's patent infringement claims. And here we are. A lot of this information is going to come from one primary source and then several other sources and just the research I've done over the case and citing the patents and just a lot of the background research I have. One of the difficulties in getting information on this for a lot of people is the fact that, like, the way Japanese courts work, apparently, according to an article I read that was interviewing a Japanese attorney, is that to get information on the case, on an ongoing case, you have to physically go to the court or you have to appear at the court, and two, to get a lot more of the specific details, like in this case, the actual claims being made and the counterclaims being made by the defendant, you have to be an interested party of some sort. But GamesFray managed to get a Japanese attorney, apparently, to go to the court and get them the information. So the large, like, very specific details of this are going to be coming from a GamesFray article. If you'd rather read that, then I'll leave a link in the description. I'd really like the watch time. A lot of it's going to be going off of that, and then other stuff that I've read, other articles that I've read, other, like, actually pulling up the patents and stuff. But here we go. According to the same Japanese patent attorney, there's three basic methods, at least in Japan, for defending against a patent infringement claim. One, say that you didn't infringe. Say that the things that they are claiming are infringement, and explain why. Two, challenge the validity of the patent itself, basically saying, listen, hey, this shouldn't be a patent. And there's a few different ways to do that I will discuss. And then the final one is just change the thing. Palworld Pocketpair has kind of done all three of these to different extents. Obviously, they got a little bit of criticism, but they released a statement saying, hey, they changed the PAL summoning method, so rather than throw your PAL, it just summons right next to you. People upset about that. They changed that, and then they changed the fact that there are no longer glider PALs. Instead, it is you could use your glider, and the PALs increase the efficiency of your glider. One of the big reasons they do that, and they have done that, and one of the things that the patent attorney specifically said in the interview was that doing that isn't admitting guilt. Doing that isn't saying, yeah, we infringed upon these patents, but we're not doing it anymore. It's merely saying, listen, while this lawsuit is going on, we are going to acquiesce. That way, in this case, Nintendo cannot try to say, hey, courts, I need you to put an injunction. I need you to tell them that they can no longer release this game and can't publish this game because the patent is being infringed, or we haven't decided whether patent is being infringed, but it's damaging to us if they continue to do this, blah, blah, blah. My hope, and I think a lot of people's hope based on my comments, is that if Palworld Pocketpair wins this lawsuit, they release everything back, all the things that they've changed back, and are, like, very, like, vocal and aggressive about mentioning, yeah, we won the lawsuit, this is all back. Here's the basic breakdown of the current defenses that they are using. There's three main patents that are at play here. Patent JP7545191. This is basically one of the patents that is both about the capture mechanic of throwing a capture item. One of the big things that some people seem to get a little bit confused upon, just either because miscommunication or misunderstanding or whatever, is it's not about throwing a sphere specifically. It is about throwing any capture item. And in the vague wording that they give for the patent, that Nintendo has for the patent, it's about throwing any item that has an effect on a field character. This one is both has a little bit of that and a little bit of the combat character release mechanic. The strongest defense against it right now, or the prior art defense against it right now, is insane. One of the things that needs to be understood, and this is something that I didn't really understand until recently fully, because I was trying to figure it all out, and I'm learning more about this as I go too, is the priority date they give with these patents. So when they give a priority date, there's statutory limitations on when you can file a patent. Basically, when in relation to prior art, there's statutory limitations on how long after a prior piece of prior art is released that you can actually file the patent. In the United States, I believe it's 1 year. In Japan, it's 6 months. So Japan's actually slightly more restrictive on that. What the priority date workaround does, and the reason why there's several patents all filed under a priority date, is a priority date says that this patent is a derivative of a priorly filed patent. So the prior art limitation, the statutory limitation for prior art, should be based on the original patent, the patent that this patent gives priority to, which allows them to backdate the prior art. That was one of the sources of confusion for a lot of people and for me, because a lot of these patents were filed in 2024 after Palworld was released, but they did it by using priority date of a previously filed patent. Now, from the looks of it, that doesn't even matter, because even those priority dates for the previously filed patent shouldn't really apply to everything, because another one of the things with prior art isn't the moment that the patented thing, the patented concept, the patented idea, the patented piece of technology was made publicly available to use. It's when it was publicly shown, when it was publicly displayed, when it was advertised to the public as this is a thing coming soon to you. And in that case, even then, they don't meet the statutory limitations, because I'll get into that. For the JP7545191, the one of the ones that discusses capture mechanics and releasing combat pals, there is a lot of prior art. The cited prior art here, and again, I'm going to be going largely off the Games Free article, but I'm also going to be talking about other stuff that I've seen myself or researched myself. The ones they're primarily citing for that is Rune Factory 5, Titanfall 2, Pikmin 3 Deluxe, show how you can release a monster or a capture item in a direction, because they all have something like that. Pikmin 3 Deluxe, Far Cry 5, and Tomb Raider showed how there could be different types of throwable objects, because that's one of the things in contention. Different types of throwable objects. Grenades have existed for a very, very long time, and grenades have existed in video games for a very, very long time. And there's games where you can throw rocks at people, and those have existed for a very, very long time. Don't know what's going on there. Pocket Souls, Octopath Traveler, Monster, Super League, and Final Fantasy XIV have a method for showing how likely you are to be successful in capturing a field creature, how likely a capture operation is to work for you. I'll show that off here real quick. But basically, it's talking about this, where like I aim my capture. Oh, he died. Aim my capture sphere here at a. They keep dying. A pal in the field, and it tells me how likely I am to actually capture it. That is one of the points of contention. And they cite their very own game, Craftopia, which came out, I believe, in 2020. The patent itself was filed in December 20, the original one. The original patent that Nintendo was using and then claiming all the future patents give priority to was filed on December 22nd, 2021. That's an important date here. And then one of the ones that's also like kind of mentioned by the article, and like I think I might have mentioned in the past, or maybe a comment mentioned. I remember having some reason to think about it, was the Pixelmon mod for Minecraft. There's a GTA mod that has Pokemon in it, basically, that has that same concept. Ark has the cryospheres, or is it cryosphere? The cryo whatever object that you can use to capture dinosaurs. So there's a lot of prior art for this that exists well out of the statutory limitations of the date that they filed it, because Ark has been around for much longer than 6 months prior to December 22nd of 2021. And then there's the JP7493117 is about capturing characters and uses a lot of the same prior art in its defense of why it's an invalid patent. These are all the discussions of why these patents are invalid. And then there's JP7528390. This is the one that is about that they ended up getting rid of gliding pals to kind of, play ball while they're in the middle of litigation. This is the one that's about the smooth switching of a riding object. And Pocketpair once again cited Ark, because the Archaeopteryx, which was released in September 12th of 2016, does exactly that. My favorite thing about Pocketpair's defense against this one is that one of the things they cited as prior art is The Legend of Zelda. Because The Legend of Zelda has gliders. But it came out, the one that had gliders came out long before the statutory limitation of, long outside of the statutory limitations of 6 months prior to December 22nd of 2021. So Pocketpair is using Nintendo's own IP against them to say, listen, you made this long ago, and didn't patent it then, you don't have the right to patent it now, kind of thing. Which is one of my favorite little things that's going on there. Because there's a few different moments here, a few different things of prior art that Nintendo has cited as why this is an invalid patent, and why these patents are invalid, that are Nintendo properties. So it's fantastic. And then one of the other defenses of why the patents may be invalid, or why the claims that Nintendo is making about patent infringement are invalid, is called the free technology defense. And it's effectively saying that the mechanic that we have the thing that we are doing that you are saying is patent infringement is something that if we had tried to apply for a patent for it, the patent office would not have granted it because it's not unique enough to merit a patent. Basically saying what we're doing is not so unique that it is patentable. It might be tangentially related to your patent, but the specific implementation that we are using is not a patentable thing because it is not unique enough. It's not something that is patentable by its uniqueness, because patents inherently have to have a level of like uniqueness to them, which is also a kind of funny defense to me, because it's very much them saying, listen, we're not doing anything that special. We're not doing anything so special that it would have been patentable to begin with. So the fact that you're mad about it, it's insane. And then there's defenses that Pocketpair was making that were saying these patents are invalid because either the patents aren't, there's prior art, or they're, in the case of the free technology defense, it's not a unique enough thing to be patentable to begin with, which a lot of these game mechanic patents, I have a whole other video that's like an hour long that me and Mammoth, my editor, go over different video game mechanic patents. A lot of them don't seem like they're unique enough to merit a patent, but they somehow got them anyways. Now, the non-infringement arguments that Pocketpair is making, the thing of them saying this isn't infringement at its very base. Not only are these patents not valid to begin with, but even if these patents were valid, we would not be infringing them. The start of it, one of the claims that Pocketpair is making, according to this article, is that the patents that Nintendo filed to target Palworld are based on a different game genre. Pokemon in and of itself is a different game genre than what Palworld is. Pokemon is, a creature capture role-playing game, JRPG, whatever you want to call it, but Palworld is a survival crafting game. It just has a creature capture mechanic to it. So based on that, it's almost like the way trademarks work, where, or at least the argument they're making is it's kind of like the way trademarks works, where a trademark specifically applies to using that trademark within the same basic industry. For instance, like you can't have golden arches and open a fast food restaurant because McDonald's owns that trademark. But outside of the industry, you might be able to get away with it. And would I want to be the one to challenge McDonald's and start using their trademark, even if it wasn't anything related to fast food? No way in hell. Not worth the lawsuit. But that's kind of the argument that they're making, is that it's a different genre, so it shouldn't apply to begin with. And then more specifically on the specific patents they're going for, the JP7545191, GamesFrey was able to get the actual claims chart, which has the claim, the patent claim that Nintendo is saying is being infringed upon, and then Pocketpair's response to that, saying why this isn't infringement. So I'm going to go over those. There's JP7545191, claim one, a computer which... It's the opening. It's the very broad. I've complained about it before. The very vague opening things that it just seems like the previous patents I've seen from Nintendo and from other game companies are a lot more specific. A lot of these ones that are targeting Palworld right now are a game or a computer program that does this, and that's how it starts. But claim two, based on an operation input by pressing an operation button, causes a player character in a virtual space to take a stance to release a capture item when a first category group, including a plurality of types of capture items for capturing a field character placed on a field in a virtual space is selected, and to take a stance to release the combat character when a second category group, including a plurality of types of combat characters for fighting, is selected. One of the first things that Pocketpair is saying why this doesn't infringe upon it is that the patent reads such that there is one operation, there's one button that does all of these things, but that is not the case. If you want to release your PAL, for me, I'm on console, or I'm on computer. So for me, it's release the PAL is E, select the PAL is 3 or 1, aim is with the mouse in this. And taking the stance is all that. It's not one thing, but Pocketpairs is saying they're trying to say that it is one thing. Why do I have my metal detector out? That they're starting to say it's one thing, and then that their other response to this claim is that the patent specifically refers to combat characters for fighting as selected, and that is making a differentiation between combat and non-combat states and combat and non-combat characters, but that doesn't exist in Palworld. There is no PAL that you can capture that is a non-combat PAL or a combat PAL, or in a non-combat state and a combat state. It's everything is combat. Some of them have more utility. Some of them aren't really great at combat, but they can be used at combat. You can go capture a land ball and use it to fight. And then the claim 3 and determines an aiming direction within the virtual space based on the directional input. Claim 4, and based on an operation input by an operation button different from the operation button, causes a player character in the virtual space to take a stance to release the capture item when the first category group is selected, and to release the combat character when the second category group is selected. This one, I mean, the response that Games Frey says that Palworld is giving to this, Pocketpairs is giving to this is, depending on the whether it's about a capture item or a combat character, the player can release such an item. One of the things to me that's kind of weird about this too, that they didn't mention about the way this is worded, and maybe it's just me not understanding it properly, is that it says a category group is collected, but like you don't select the category group. Yeah, and they say that prior is both 2.21 involve a selection of a first or second category group, but there is no such selection. So the category groups they're discussing are items or PALs, effectively, but you don't select them. It's not like you put into your hand. It's not like some games where you have to have in your hand, you have like a little, I don't know why I point, you have like a little down here bar of items that you can select, and then you have to select that item or anything. I can press Q to release a ball and press E to do this. I'm not selecting a different category group to do that. They are just two different buttons that do the same thing, or that do different things. Claim 5, when the capture item is selected, the player character is caused to perform an action of releasing the operation button that was pressed when causing the player characters to perform the ready action. The player character is caused to perform an action of releasing the selected capture item in the aiming direction when the capture item is selected. And when the combat character is selected, the player character is caused to perform an action of releasing the selected combat character in the aiming direction when the capture item is released. And hits the field character. I saw that and I was like, it's not specific enough here, I think, because if it was just talking, because that same part, that claim 5.2.1, the player character is caused to perform an action of releasing the selected combat character in the aiming direction when the capture item is released and hits the field character. But you didn't need for when you were able to throw the sphere and release your PAL wherever the sphere lands, it didn't need to hit an entity in the field. If it hit the ground, that's not a field character. That's just the mesh. That's just the ground. It didn't need to hit a character in order to release it. Yes, you needed to hit a character in order to capture them, but this also references the combat character doing that. So that just makes it kind of non-specific because it's not the full case. Power specific response is the player character is caused to perform an action, and Pocketpairs says this should be interpreted as meaning that the combat character goes on to collect objects on behalf of the character, but the PALs don't actually do that. That's not always the case, I will say that. So like, is Anubis one of the ones that can gather wood? This is something that annoys me sometimes when I'm playing this game, and why do I have a mana rest out? When I go to like release a PAL that can do wood, can gather lump, look, he's just going to do that. He's going to do. I don't want him to, and sometimes it's very annoying because they go to do it when I'm trying to get them to do something else, and then they create stuff on the ground, and then I accidentally pick it up, and then I get over encumbered. So I don't. So the PALs kind of actually do that, but maybe not in the direct way of like they're not running around like there's stuff on the ground over there. He's not running to go collect it. I'm also not 100% sure why Pocketpairs is saying that this refers to that. Maybe it's some specific nuance of the wording, particularly when it's interpreted in Japanese. I'm not sure. And then claim 6 that Pocketpairs doesn't respond to is the player character is caused to perform a capture success determination as to whether or not the capture is successful. When the capture success determination is judged to be positive, the field character that was hit by the capture item is set to a state in which it's owned by the player. Combat character is released to a location where it can fight with the field character. A fight between the combat character and the field character is initiated on the field. I would also say Pocketpairs apparently doesn't have a response to that, and to be fair, like their earlier response of there's no such thing as a combat character because they're all combat characters. There's not multiple modes of characters, not multiple categories of monster, of PAL. They all do combat, and they can also sometimes do other stuff. I would also say a fight between the combat character and the field character is initiated on the field. Yes, but one also not always. but I guess it doesn't matter, not always. But 2, yes, but like that's also like they're referencing Pokemon. They are referencing Pokemon as their prior art, and the way a fight in Pokemon plays out is vastly different than the way a fight in Palworld plays out. Right now, this fight's going on. I guess the Moozarina didn't want to fight. Yeah, like right here. I release my Relaxosaurus. He's gonna go get in a fight, but I'm not in a fight state. I'm not changed to a fight mode. Like, you know, Pokemon traditionally, and then in like Legends of Arceus, you are now in combat. You and your pal are now in combat, and that's kind of a different state of being from the rest of the gameplay. I'm still moving around. I can freely remove my pal and take him in and stay in the same sort of combat or get out of combat. It's not the same fight system as what Pokemon has, which is what these patents are sort of being based off of. Which would imply to me that if I were reading that, if I were the jury, or if I was the person saying, I was like, these are 2 different things that you were discussing. Just like they said earlier, it's 2 different genres of games. These are 2 different types of interaction that you're discussing that because of the word choice used can have multiple meanings, but the way that Nintendo has implemented it in the past is not the way that Palworld is implementing it. That would be my response. Patent 2, which is JP7493117, which is similar to the previous one, so I'll kind of speed through it real quick. A game program which, in a first mode, causes a computer of an information processing device to determine aim and direction within a virtual space based on a first operation input, which is a directional input, so boom. And when a second operation input is performed, causes the aiming direction to be directed toward a field character placed on a field in the virtual space and displays a first indicator. Bam. And based on a third operation input, causes the player character to perform an action of releasing a capture item to capture the field character in the aiming direction. Bam. And when the capture item hits the field character, causes a capture success determination to be made as whether the capture is successful. That's what it did right now. The capture is successful. It also kind of, okay, it does give the determination because it gives me the % likelihood when I'm aiming, but then it actually makes a determination of whether or not it works after it makes contact. And when the capture success determination is judged to be positive, causes the field character hit by the capture item to be set to a state where it is owned by the player. I now own that, Woolly Pop, which I hate the name. And the first indicator is information which indicates the ease with which capture success determination is judged to be positive. So the fact that it shows me how likely I am to go and have capture that. How did I miss? How am I so bad at this? Here, Pocketpair is saying that what Nintendo is saying that this patent is, the wording of this is that there is a mode in which a group of multiple types of capture items is selected, and a second mode which selects multiple types of combat characters, but Palworld doesn't do that. Again, when you get into that situation, you're not in a mode to select combat characters. You're not doing that. Like you use 1 and 3 to move it around, or whatever it is on console, and then you just press Q, and you scroll through, but you're not going into like separate modes. That's kind of my understanding of their answer to this. And the Japanese patent attorney Ryo Arashi, who's written several articles on this, claims or states that he believes that the reason Nintendo filed the last patent is because it doesn't have a lot of these mode references that are not true in the case of Palworld. So they wanted to get that one still using the same priority, patent priority date and patent priority, to say, oh, it's related to this, to do that. And then they also argue that the way that Nintendo describes it, that it must be, the second operational input must be a button that functions, or a function that serves as a substitute for directional input, but that is not the case in this. It doesn't serve as a substitute for directional input. So that, now they're saying, okay, we're not infringing on that. Moving on to the last one, the JP7528390, the one that's about rideable pals and all that. Claim 2, and when one of a plurality of types of boarding characters that the player character can board is selected from the characters owned by the player character and a boarding instruction is given, has the player character board the selecting boarding character and make it mobile. The way Pocketpair is responding to this and saying it's not patent infringement is that the sequence that Nintendo describes of selecting a character and giving a boarding instruction implies that the character is boarded without the need for other inputs, but that is not the case. And then claim 3, and when a first operational input is given while the player character is in the air, has the player character board an airborne boarding character among the boarding characters that can move in the air and make it mobile in the air, and claim 4. And while the player character is boarding the airborne boarding characters, moves the player character boarding the airborne character in the air based on the operational input. I'm a bit confused by Pocketpairs' supposed response to this, according to the Game Spray. They're saying that this refers to flying characters that can be boarded, but that you can't select such characters for the purpose of boarding them. Yes. Yes. So I'm not sure 100% what that is about. I mean, I think the biggest counter to that one is going to be it's not a valid patent because thousands of things have done this before. I'm not 100% sure on that. But yeah, so far that's been the response, at least that Pocketpair is giving, to say we're not infringing the patents. One, these patents aren't valid. We're not infringing them to begin with, and in the meantime, we have made the necessary changes to stop them from being able to further pursue us about this. I really like the fact that they're citing a lot of Nintendo's own own IP and own products for why the patents aren't valid, because they're outside of the statutory limitations. I think it's super shady that these guys can try to get around prior art by basically saying, oh, this is priority to a different patent. This is priority to, I know we're creating a new thing. We're patenting a new concept. We're basically expanding upon a patent to add more stuff into it that is now making it a greater scope so that we can target this new thing. But since there's this other patent that's related to it, sort of, that we can do that, I think that's shady as hell. But also of note, again, mind you, what I said earlier, all of these patents were filed, all the ones that, the original set of patents was filed on December 22nd, 2021. All the following patents are giving priority to those patents. That way they can stay... They can use that date as their start of statutory limitations, the 6 months they have to file the patent. But the June 5th, 2021 Indie Live Expo showed this. I don't know why the quality is as bad as it is. Oh, it might just be because they were still working on the mesh. It might not be on my side. It might be on the game side. Yeah, it definitely looks good. So it shows gliding right there. It shows gliding right there. So right there, right in that trailer that was released again on June 5th of 2021, Palworld showed off the gliding mechanic that is the subject of the third patent that is being infringed. I'm gonna do a little math here. June 5th. June is the 6th month of the year. December 22nd. December is the 12th month of the year. The statutory limitations are 6 months. So it is still outside of that 6 month limitation, because if that trailer had occurred on June 23rd, or if the patents were filed on December 4th, it would still be within the statutory limitations of filing a patent. So even though they're backdating all this, they're using priority dating to backdate everything to those patents, it's still not within the statutory limitations. And then the other patents that they're filing, the ones that are about capture mechanics and throwing an object in 3D space, they released Craftopia in 2020. So the prior art, it's still outside of the statutory limitations of when they would be able to file that patent. So even though, it's one of the comments I've gotten sometimes when I was first doing this, because I was trying to understand everything, people are saying, well, technically you filed these patents in 2021. I was like, well, this one's saying this, and well, priority date and blah, blah, and I had to do more research to understand it. But even with that, even with the fact that they filed it in 2021 and Palworld was released last year, it doesn't matter, because they released that trailer, and since they made this mechanic publicly known and discussed it and released it to the public that this is a thing that's happening, that is when the statutory limitation timeline starts. But that's that. I am working on a much larger video that's going to be breaking down everything about this in a much more detailed way, in a much grander way. It might be a very, very long video, or longer than my average video at the very least. So if you're interested in that, subscribe. I'm also turning on memberships. I'll have a little thing over here that's going to explain all the stuff you get from memberships. I'm primarily turning on memberships because I do have an editor now. Once I got monetized, I was able to now start getting ad revenue from the videos I'm putting out. So I was able to actually start saying, hey, Mammoth, he had edited a video or two for me before that, and I tried to pay him out of my own pocket for that, but it wasn't something I could sustainably do, and I didn't want to be throwing, like, he wanted to do it for free. I wanted to pay him. I paid him, but it wasn't something I could sustainably do, and I didn't want to keep throwing stuff at him. So I'm turning on the memberships primarily to be able to pay my editor more and hopefully get it to the point where he can work full time. If I get enough from memberships, then that's all that to get to the point where he's going to be able to go full time is going to go to him. As well, I live stream. I use live commentary mode when I live stream on YouTube because dealing with trolls and stuff like that is just easier. One of the membership thing is going to be the ability to comment just by being a member. But also, if you're interested in checking out my live stream so that I have a little bit more control over it and can, vet people so I don't get the massive amounts of trolls, leave a comment in the comment section of I watch stream. And I can search for that. I space WATCH space stream STREAM. And I can search for that and add you to the approved commenters and stuff. Yeah, that's what I got for now. I'm sorry that turned out a lot longer. I know a lot of people say my videos are too long sometimes and want the bottom line up front, the TLDW. Sorry. But see you next time.